Hi guys, this is Sam from Eggseeds. You join me in my garden. Today I'm going to invite you to join me on the 1 metre square garden challenge. We'll be joining a community of growers to see how much we can garden in just 1 metre square. Now this doesn't have to be in a square, this can be in pots, this can be in different shapes, but the garden itself is just 1 metre square. What I'm going to show you is a few different ways in which we can grow using raised beds from materials I found around the garden. Whether it's being made out of blocks, wood, pots, straight in the ground. The only bit of ground you may have may just be a lawn. I'll show you how you can turn that space into a growing space. You may think it's going to be hard and you're going to have to dig over the ground. I'll show you a no-dig technique, which means you'll be ready to go as soon as you have the resources you need to start. I'll show you an interesting way called straw bale gardening, and we'll run through the 2-week process to get that started, and then we'll be growing in some straw bales. I'll show you a raised bed. Now a raised bed could be square, but I prefer my raised beds to be a C shape because I'll maximise my growing space, and I'll show you a sneaky little trick why as the videos go on. Well, here's the space I'm going to do in my 1 metre square garden challenge on. What you can see is the front garden. The sun's coming down on the left hand side as we look at it in the morning, and it sets on roughly the right hand side, so that means this is a south facing aspect, so it's going to get good sun all day. What you'll notice is I've got the ground covered already. This is where I've been saving some fruit cuttings. I'll peel back the ground cover and show you what the grass is looking like underneath. Okay, now I've peeled back the ground cover and you can see there's still grass growing underneath. I only put the ground cover down just this week, but I'll be using this space all the way up to do 3 different gardens, and we'll see how much we can grow in them. So for some of the garden ideas I'll keep the ground cover back. For others I might use it to grow directly through the ground cover. We'll see how the design goes. There's no point hanging around on this gorgeous morning, so let's go start this garden challenge. I hope you join me on it.
Now the first garden I'm going to show you is a straw bale garden. I'm going to speed through this on the video, and I'm going to set up its own video about how to start a straw bale garden and all the steps involved. If you're interested in following this method, then to get a straw bale you might want to check out your local farm supplier. These shops are still open. The farm supplier I go to is Arthur Johns in Cowbridge, and their straw bales range between £4 and £5 a bale, and when compared to compost of a similar size you could be paying £8 upwards, and the energy in the compost wouldn't be enough to grow the whole season, whereas in the straw bale it's the breakdown of the straw bale in a composting process which feeds the plant. There are a few more suppliers you need to get this method going, but cost on cost, this is a great budget method to start growing. This is a great technique if you don't have any soil, if you want to try a new method of growing, you want to try some science experiments with the kids. It's a cheap way of getting started with a garden, doing different designs. It can reduce the amount of pests and weeds, and at the end of the season you have a product that can go underneath the trees, bushes, or it can be made into another straw bale and grown a second crop of potatoes in. I'm a fan for this growing technique, in particular in schools, because they can repeat it year on year. They can design the space, they can go on to build the space, and then there's a daily task in which they can get involved in to get the straw bale going, which will include watering, measuring out fertilizer, volumes and measures, working in a team, and the exciting thing of exploring the science behind composting.
I've been hunting around my garden and I found two different types of blocks. They're roughly the same size. But if I'm going to build a 1 metre square garden out of these, then I need to know roughly how big they are so I can work out what shapes and sizes I can get away with building. So first I'm going to get round to measuring them.
So they measured at 44, 21 by 10, 44, 21 by 10. I went for a C-shaped design, and I guessed I needed about 17 full blocks and 2 half blocks. I changed my design as I recalculated the area in between and realised that I was over a metre square, so I shrunk it down 16 blocks. Here I'm adding some coconut fibre. It's a good absorptive layer, holds water and moisture. I'm just giving it a good soaking so it expands out. Here I'm using some old grow bags I found in the garden. I took out all the weeds first. This is just to bulk up the bed. Giving it another good soaking. Here I've got some ripped shop bought compost. That one particularly had added nutrient. Here's a large 90 litre bag. This is a multi-purpose compost, and I'm just top dressing the bed with this, and this will be what I sow and grow into. Again, I give the layer a nice soaking.
Hi guys, it's Sam from Metre, and you can see behind me I've now created a straw bale garden, which is roughly a 1 metre square garden. I've also created a keyhole garden, a square metre garden on the ground using old blocks, and I've filled it with compost ready. I said earlier I'd show you a no-dig method of starting a garden. This is on a patch of lawn, but first I've got bare grass, so what I'm going to want to do first of all is cover it with something that will block the grass from getting sunlight, but will also break down and become part of the soil structure underneath. So I've collected some cardboard boxes over the last few days of some deliveries. I'm going to break them up, I'm going to overlap them, then I'm going to water them until they're nice and wet, and cover them with compost and soak that so that it don't blow away if there's any wind. We're going to put together a quick square foot garden. I'm making the sides out of timber left over from the school project, so let me show you how to put it all together.
To watch this build in slow motion, click on our other video and subscribe to our channel on how to build a square foot garden. Here we are measuring out the wood for both the 2 long sides and the 2 short sides. Now with them cut, we're just going to cut some 4 small corner pieces. First we're going to add the corner pieces to the long sides. We're just making sure the screws don't come in contact with each other. That's the basic structure of the bed. Now we're lining out the sticks to measure out the square feet. These sticks were salvaged at the wood yard as they're used just in between the stacks of wood to aerate them. They normally throw them away. Just mark them so they can be sawn. Trying to put them back in the right order. Now they're all in place, it's putting the central line in. This doesn't have to be done with wood. These dividers could have been done with string. The dividers don't have to stay permanently, but for visual purposes and in schools I would normally leave them in place.
So that's the finished square foot garden. You can see there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 square feet inside that bed.
So let's put the square foot garden in place, making sure there's a pathway between the fruit and the bed. So filling the square foot garden, I used 4 different mediums. Old soil from the garden, which has sand, pine needles, bones, etc. In the second section I used koi, which is coconut fibre. In the third and fourth sections I've used general bagged compost. And in the last section I've used chopped rape straw. These 4 mediums I've added a handful of bloodfish and bone fertiliser in pellet form. Now I'm not too worried about the nutrient content in here because I'm going to be growing potatoes which are going to be rooted into the ground underneath, and this medium is just going to be a way of protecting those potatoes from the sunlight. How about if you don't have soil, raised beds, straw bales, land, or even a garden? You might just have a patio or a balcony. We can always use containers. Now these containers could be a polythene bag, such as this 36 litre polythene bag, or it could be a pot such as this, a 30 litre flower pot that you would find in a supermarket holding bunch flowers. It could also be a terracotta pot, a recycled plastic bottle. In fact, it could be any container that can hold soil or water. But I'll show you how to turn these two into little potato gardens. First I'd need to fill these containers up with some compost, about 1/3 full. So this would be a height of say 4 fingers. I'm going to go ahead and start this. Now I filled up the bag with 1/3 of compost. Now I'm going to move on to the container. Problem I've got with this container is it's got no drainage holes. I don't want to put drainage holes on the bottom because it'd be sitting on the concrete and the water might not get out. So I'm going to put them on the sides, roughly in the middle, an inch up from the ground, so they're less likely to crack the plastic. I'm going to go slowly on the impact driver with a speed bit. I didn't always have tools, so you could use a sharp knife rotating in circles, a pair of scissors, again using the sharp blades, spinning it round in circles where you want the hole, or you could use a hot knife where you could poke a hot knife through the plastic. I probably don't need 4 holes for this level of drainage. Now that I've made 4 holes, I need to fill this container up to 1/3 full. Now they're both 1/3 full, I'm going to add some fertiliser, some bloodfish and bone, and the instructions would tell you about 50 grams per 10 litres, but I'm just going to use a liberal handful per container and then mix it up in the compost. Now it's time to bring over them first early potatoes I had spare. I'm just going to put 2 in each container, as each first early potato requires 20 litres of compost for the plant to grow successfully and produce a good amount of tubers. Now I'm just going to fill it up with some more compost until it's half full, and that's all that's left is to put the containers into position and give them a good water and wait for them to grow. Hopefully these 5 ways of growing in a square metre will inspire you. Subscribe to the channel and follow us on this journey.